Ambassador Ethan Hale stood at the podium of the Grand Chamber aboard the orbital station New Horizon, a stunning feat of engineering suspended in the dark tapestry of space. He adjusted his tie nervously, the room's opulence juxtaposed starkly against the weight of the moment. The walls were lined with holographic displays showcasing Earth's achievements, but today, those images felt like relics of a bygone era. Ambassador Hale. His aide, Dr. Mira Lynn, whispered urgently, her eyes darting to the assembled delegates. The tension among the crowd was palpable, like static electricity before a storm. They're restless. Ethan cleared his throat, preparing to speak. Esteemed representatives of the Interstellar Coalition, he began, his voice steady but laced with anxiety. Today marks a pivotal moment in our relations. We stand on the brink of a sudden roar interrupted him, followed by a bone-rattling explosion that sent the chamber into chaos. The lights flickered, and the once serene atmosphere erupted into panic. Get down! Mira shouted, grabbing Ethan's arm and pulling him behind the podium. The sounds of shattering glass and screaming delegates filled the air, a cacophony of fear. What in the galaxy was that? Ethan gasped, trying to regain his composure as he crouched low. His heart raced, pounding in his chest like a war drum. The intricate designs of the room, once so beautiful, now felt oppressive and threatening. An attack! Myra's voice trembled slightly as she peered around the podium. We have to find shelter! Amidst the chaos, Ethan's thoughts raced. The aliens! He recalled the warning from intelligence reports. Tensions had been rising with the Coalition over their mining operations on asteroid 417. This summit was supposed to pave the way for peace, but now it felt like a cruel joke. Ethan, we need to move! Mira urged, her gaze scanning the room for any escape routes. She was his rock, a brilliant scientist with a sharp mind and a heart dedicated to peace. But even she couldn't suppress the flicker of fear in her eyes. Right, he said, taking a deep breath to steady himself. Follow me. They dashed through the smoke-filled chamber, dodging falling debris and frantic delegates. Ethan's mind churned as they navigated the wreckage. What had they done to provoke such an attack? The Coalition had been vocal about their displeasure, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. They reached a secure hallway, its metallic walls echoing their hurried footsteps. We have to regroup with the others, Ethan said, glancing at Mira, whose face was pale but determined. If we can stabilize the situation, we might still salvage the summit. Do you really believe that? She challenged, her brow furrowing. After this? They'll see us as weak. They'll take Earth as an easy target. Ethan paused, contemplating her words. We can't let fear dictate our response. We must remain united, show them that Earth stands firm, even in chaos. His resolve began to crystallize. As a diplomat, he had always envisioned peace through understanding, but now he realized that strength and resilience were equally vital. Suddenly, a loud crackle echoed through the hallway, and a voice came through the emergency intercom. All personnel, report to your designated safe zones immediately. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Panic surged again, but Ethan held Myra's gaze. We're not done yet. Let's find the others and come up with a plan. As they moved deeper into the station, the corridor opened into a vast control room filled with screens showing the chaos outside. Ethan's stomach dropped as he saw alien ships maneuvering around the station, their sleek forms stark against the backdrop of stars. The realization struck him hard. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Ethan, we need to make a choice, Mira said, urgency filling her tone. We can either fight back or try to negotiate from a position of weakness. His heart raced. This was the moment that would define him. Let's try to get to the main deck. If we can establish contact with the fleet, we might still have a chance to turn this around. With every step, Ethan felt the weight of responsibility settling heavily on his shoulders. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and he could not afford to falter now. The stakes were high, and the clock was ticking. The control room buzzed with frantic energy as Ethan and Mira pushed through the reinforced doors. Holographic displays flickered overhead, casting a bluish glow on the faces of the crew gathered around the central command console. The atmosphere was thick with urgency, palpable and suffocating, like the very air had turned to steel. "Status report!" Ethan barked, stepping forward. His authority was instinctive, born of years spent navigating diplomatic channels, but the gravity of the situation pressed heavily on his shoulders. "Sir?" A young technician named Lysander replied, his fingers flying over the touchscreen interface. "We're detecting multiple alien vessels on approach. Their weapons systems are online, and they're broadcasting a message." "Put it on," Mira urged, her voice steady, though her eyes betrayed a hint of fear. The screen flickered to life, revealing a tall figure with scaled skin and piercing red eyes, a Xylox commander. "Earth representatives," the alien rasped. "You have been warned. Withdraw your forces from Asteroid 417, or face annihilation." The image dissolved back into static, but the threat lingered in the air like a bad omen. Ethan clenched his fists, fighting back the rising tide of despair. "They can't just. They can and they will if we don't act fast," Mira interrupted, her gaze fixed on the screen. "We need to respond, show them that Earth will not back down." A mixture of anger and determination coursed through him. "We need to contact Admiral Rodriguez. If we can get the fleet mobilized, we might still have a chance to deter them. Admiral Rodriguez is aboard the Icarus, which is currently en route to intercept. He won't receive our signal until—" Lysander started, but Ethan cut him off. "Until it's too late. We can't wait. There must be a way to reach him directly." Mira stepped closer, her voice calm but insistent. "What about the communications relay on the outer deck? If we can get there, we might have a direct line." "Let's move," Ethan commanded, his mind racing. The group quickly nodded in agreement, forming a makeshift team to navigate the perilous corridors of New Horizon. As they made their way through the twisting passages, the sounds of chaos faded into the background. The occasional clang of metal on metal reverberated, a grim reminder of the looming threat. The walls, once a symbol of unity and progress, now felt like a labyrinth of impending doom. "Ethan," Mira said, catching up to him as they turned a corner, "I know this is hard, but we need to focus. The Xylox don't understand negotiation, they thrive on intimidation. We have to show them that humanity stands united." His heart raced as he contemplated her words. "You're right. But how do we convince them? We've never faced an adversary like this." "Maybe we don't have to," Lysander interjected, his voice a mixture of hope and hesitation. "We could demonstrate our technology. The pulse cannon could give them something to think about." "The pulse cannon is experimental," Mira shot back, urgency sharpening her tone. "We can't risk using it without proper calibration. It could backfire, literally." Ethan weighed their options as they continued onward, adrenaline fueling his thoughts. "We need a show of strength but also a strategy that doesn't lead to destruction. We can't afford to alienate the other races in the coalition." As they reached the access hatch to the outer deck, the dim lighting flickered ominously. Ethan pressed the control panel, and the hatch opened with a hiss, revealing the open airlock and the swirling depths of space beyond. The sight was breathtaking, but the weight of the moment pulled him back to reality. The crew hustled onto the deck, where the communications array loomed ahead, a complex tangle of wires and machinery. Ethan approached the terminal, his fingers trembling slightly as he activated the interface. Come on, he murmured under his breath, watching the loading bar crawl agonizingly slow. "Ethan!" Myra's sharp gasp broke his concentration. He turned to see a massive Xylox ship materializing in the viewport, its dark silhouette cutting a menacing figure against the stars. "They're here! Lysander, keep trying to establish a connection with Admiral Rodriguez," Ethan shouted, adrenaline surging through him. "Mira, help me with the array. We need to send a message before they open fire." "Got it," she responded, her determination igniting a spark of hope within him. The deck trembled as the Xylox ship shifted into position, the low hum of its weapons systems becoming a terrifying symphony. Ethan's heart raced as he turned back to the terminal, desperately typing commands, sweat trickling down his brow. "Status!" he barked. "Communications are up, but we're still not connecting." Lysander's fingers flew over the console, panic seeping into his voice. "Then we do it manually," Ethan decided, rushing to a backup panel. His hands moved quickly, overriding systems and sending signals into the void. "Come on, Admiral. Please respond." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently as a blinding flash illuminated the viewport. A resounding boom echoed through the deck, and the lights flickered once more. Ethan's heart sank. The Xylox had made their first strike. "Hold on!" Mira shouted, grabbing hold of the console as alarms blared around them. "We need to finish this now." With everything at stake, Ethan pushed through the rising tension. They were on the brink of war, and every second counted. Would they be able to reach the fleet in time? The answer loomed in the darkness, just beyond their grasp. Ethan's fingers danced across the console as he fought to regain control of the situation. The first blast from the Xylox ship had rattled the entire structure of New Horizon, but it was the imminent threat of another shot that urged him forward. Each moment stretched like an eternity, tension crackling in the air as alarms blared and red lights strobed like warning signals. "Establishing a direct line to Admiral Rodriguez," Lysander declared, his voice laced with a mixture of hope and desperation. "Come on, come on!" Mara was at his side, her expression fierce. "We can't wait any longer. We need to send a distress signal to the Coalition. They must know what's happening here." "Right," Ethan replied, steeling himself as he shifted his focus. He navigated through layers of security protocols, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing against his chest. As the crew behind him scrambled to prepare for the next onslaught, he pushed through the chaotic noise, the gravity of their mission grounding him. A second tremor rocked the deck, sending sparks flying from the panel. The lights dimmed momentarily, and Ethan steadied himself against the console, gritting his teeth. "We need to arm the pulse cannon. It's our only shot if they fire again." "Are you sure that's wise?" Mara asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "The last thing we want is to escalate this conflict." Ethan met her gaze, determination hardening his resolve. "They've already fired on us. We can't just sit here and wait to be destroyed. We need to show them we're not afraid to defend ourselves." Lysander's hands trembled as he finally succeeded in establishing a link. "I've got Admiral Rodriguez. He's on the line." Ethan leaned closer to the console, his heart racing. "Admiral, this is Ethan Mercer on New Horizon. We're under attack from a Xylox warship. They've issued an ultimatum, and we need immediate assistance." The screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Rodriguez's stern visage. "Ethan, I'm aware of the situation. We're en route, but it'll take time. You must hold out until the fleet arrives." "What's your status?" "Minimal damage, but we're running out of options. I recommend activating the pulse cannon. Do not fire that weapon unless you have no other choice." Rodriguez interrupted, his tone clipped. "We're trying to avoid an all-out war. Is there any possibility of negotiation?" "Negotiation?" Mara interjected, her voice rising. "They've already shown they're not interested in talks. We need to take action now." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. "Ethan, listen to Mira. Do not provoke them further. The Coalition is on high alert. We cannot afford to make this worse." Ethan felt a pang of frustration. "Admiral, if we don't act, they'll see our hesitation as weakness. We'll be sitting ducks." The communication link crackled, and for a moment, silence filled the room as Ethan weighed his options. Time was not on their side. They needed to act before the Xylox made their next move. He glanced at Mira and Lysander, gauging their expressions of concern, and realized that he was standing at a precipice. One wrong move could spell disaster. "Fine," Ethan relented, breaking the tension. "But if they attack again, we need to be prepared. Mira, initiate the pulse cannon startup sequence, but hold fire until we have no other option." A tense silence followed as Mira nodded, determination etched on her face. She turned to the console, her fingers flying over the controls, bringing the experimental weapon online. A soft hum filled the room, a sound both ominous and hopeful. Pulse cannon primed, Mira announced, a glimmer of satisfaction breaking through her anxiety. We're ready, but we need to know what we're targeting. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Ethan murmured, his gaze drifting back to the viewport, where the Xylox ship loomed ominously. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. They were outmatched, and any show of force could spiral into a catastrophic conflict. Suddenly, another tremor rattled the station, and a loud crack echoed through the air as sparks erupted from the nearby panel. Ethan spun around, eyes wide. What was that? Lysander's face paled as he turned to the diagnostic screens. Shields are weakening. We can't take another hit. Ethan's heart raced. We can't wait any longer. We need to send a final warning message. If they fire, we retaliate. The crew nodded, tension mounting as Mira worked feverishly at the controls, preparing a final message to the Xylox. This is our last chance. If we don't make it count, we might not get another. Ethan leaned close, feeling the weight of the moment. We are Earth's representatives, and we stand united against any who threaten us. Let's make it clear, we will not be intimidated. The hum of the pulse cannon grew louder, a throbbing heartbeat in the silence. Ready to send? Mira announced, her finger hovering over the launch button. Ethan took a deep breath, rallying his thoughts. All right, on my mark. 3, 2, 1, send! The message flew out into the void, a final plea for peace that would either deter their enemies or ignite the spark of war. As the crew waited with bated breath, the Xylox ship's weapons charged ominously, a countdown echoing in the back of Ethan's mind. Brace yourselves! Ethan shouted, just as the Xylox ship unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. The control room shook violently as the first shots hit the shields, alarms blaring once more. The lights flickered, and Ethan felt his heart drop as he locked eyes with Mira. In that moment, he knew they had crossed the line. There was no turning back now. Return fire! He ordered, his voice resolute. Mira pressed the button, and the pulse cannon roared to life, sending a brilliant beam of energy streaking towards the approaching threat. But as the beam soared into the darkness, Ethan could only wonder, would this be their last stand, or the beginning of humanity's fight for survival? The pulse cannon unleashed its destructive fury, a vibrant beam slicing through the dark vacuum of space, illuminating the massive Xylox warship. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze, as if the universe was holding its breath in anticipation. Ethan stared, adrenaline coursing through him, fully aware that this moment could determine the fate of New Horizon and everyone aboard. Direct hit! Mira shouted, her eyes widening with astonishment as the beam struck the enemy ship, causing it to tremble violently. The brilliant light flared against the obsidian hull of the Xylox vessel, momentarily exposing the jagged scars of past battles. But even as their attack landed, Ethan could see the shields flaring back to life, absorbing the impact like an iron wall. Lysander gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles pale. It's not enough! Their shields are holding! Keep firing! Ethan commanded, urgency fueling his voice. We need to penetrate their defenses before they regroup. Recharging pulse cannon, Mira replied, her fingers deftly maneuvering the controls. Sweat glistened on her brow, but determination lit her gaze. It'll take a few seconds. As the crew braced for another barrage, the Xylox ship retaliated. A thunderous roar filled the control room, and Ethan's heart raced as an energy blast hurtled toward them. The entire station shook violently, alarms shrieking in protest as the shields flared and flickered, absorbing the brunt of the attack but not without consequence. Lights dimmed and flickered, and the sound of metal groaning echoed ominously through the corridors. Shields at 50%, Lysander warned, panic creeping into his voice. We need to strengthen them, Mira urged, her focus unwavering. I'll divert power from the auxiliary systems. Ethan gritted his teeth, frustration simmering just below the surface. We can't afford to lose any more power. If we go down, we're done. Mira shot him a look, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We can't fight if we don't survive this. Trust me." Ethan paused, recognizing the truth in her words. He nodded sharply. "Do it." Mira worked quickly, her fingers dancing over the console as she rerouted energy. The room hummed with renewed intensity as the shields brightened, but Ethan knew it wouldn't last long against the relentless assault of the Xylox. "Admiral Rodriguez is still trying to establish contact," Lysander shouted. "Should I keep trying to reach him?" "Keep trying. We need every ally we can get," Ethan replied, adrenaline surging through him. He cast a glance at Mira, who was concentrated on her work. Her brow was furrowed, determination etched into her features. In that moment, he realized just how vital her role was, not just as a technician but as a crucial member of their team. "Got it!" Mira exclaimed suddenly. "The cannon is recharged. I'm ready to fire again." Ethan took a breath, rallying his thoughts. "This time, we go for their weapon systems. If we can disable them, we stand a chance." With a swift nod, Mira reoriented the cannon, her fingers hovering over the trigger. "On your mark!" Ethan's heart pounded like a war drum, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. "Fire!" The cannon roared again, the beams streaking through the void with fierce determination. It struck the Xylox ship directly, a brilliant explosion erupting from its flank. For a fleeting moment, the ship wavered, shields flickering as they struggled to recover from the impact. "Direct hit on their weapon systems!" Mira shouted, exhilaration coursing through her voice. "They're losing power!" Ethan felt a surge of hope. "Keep up the pressure! Let's not give them a chance to regroup!" Suddenly, the view screen distorted, and a figure appeared, their face obscured by static. "New Horizon, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We're rerouting forces to your location. Hold on. We're almost there." "Thank God!" Ethan exclaimed, relief washing over him. "We just need to survive a little longer." The Xylox ship, clearly agitated, retaliated with renewed ferocity. Energy blasts rained down like falling stars, illuminating the control room with their harsh glow. The sound of explosions rattled the structure, and Ethan could feel the vibrations through the deck beneath his feet. The air was thick with tension, and he knew they were running out of time. "Shields at 30%! Lysander yelled, his voice rising above the din. "If they hit us again, we won't be able to hold." Ethan's mind raced, desperation clawing at his thoughts. "Mira, can we overload the pulse cannon for a more powerful shot?" Her eyes widened in shock. "It would take out our systems. We'd be defenseless. But it might buy us the time we need," Ethan argued, determination hardening his resolve. "We have to risk it. This is our chance to end this." Mira hesitated, torn between safety and duty. "If we do this, we're committed. There's no going back." "Then let's make it count," he replied, his voice resolute. With a deep breath, Mira began the process of overloading the cannon. The tension in the room was palpable, each second stretching into an eternity. Ethan exchanged glances with Lysander and Mira, seeing the mixture of fear and resolve mirrored in their eyes. "Overloading, 20 seconds to full charge," Mira said, her voice steady despite the impending chaos. "Let's make sure they remember who they're dealing with," Ethan muttered, clenching his fists. The Xylox ship unleashed another barrage, and this time, the shields faltered under the assault, red lights flashing ominously. The control room shook, and Lysander barely managed to keep his balance. 10 seconds! Mira shouted, adrenaline evident in her voice. Ethan's pulse raced, anticipation coursing through him. "Prepare to fire on my mark." 5 seconds! Myra's fingers danced over the controls, sweat glistening on her brow. "Now!" Ethan yelled, heart pounding in his chest. Mira hit the button, and the pulse cannon roared with unimaginable power. A blinding beam shot forth, tearing through the fabric of space like a vengeful comet, striking the Xylox ship dead on. The impact was colossal, a thunderous explosion that lit up the darkness like a supernova. For a moment, silence reigned as the crew held their breath, watching the Xylox warship falter. But then, as the smoke cleared, the ship remained intact, though its weapon systems were damaged. A jagged gash marred its hull, but it was still operational. Ethan's heart sank. "Admiral, we need assistance now!" he shouted into the communication panel. The static crackled, and Rodriguez's voice came through, urgent and strained. "We're almost there, but you need to hold on. Reinforcements will arrive in minutes. Minutes might as well be an eternity," Ethan yelled, desperation creeping back into his voice. Just then, a warning light flashed on the console, followed by a chilling voice from the Xylox ship. "Humans, your resistance is futile. Surrender now, or face annihilation." Ethan met Myra's gaze, the weight of their choices crashing down upon them. They had pushed the Xylox to their limits, but would it be enough? "We're not backing down," he replied, steel in his voice. "Not now, not ever." With every passing second, the stakes escalated, and Ethan knew they were on the brink of something monumental. The battle for survival had just begun.